Hey, everybody, Jeff Cohen back with somebody I have not done a video with in a really long time, even though he's been at Seller Labs for quite a number of years. PPC Ed. PPC Ed, how are you?
I am wonderful. It is a great week and a great month and a great year. So I couldn't ask for anything, more, honestly. And it's wonderful to be talking with you again. I feel like it's been ages since we've nerded out together. So I'm excited about this.
Yeah. And PPC Ed is like one of the founding fathers of our managed services group. And, many years ago, him and myself and one other kind of started the managed services group. Ed is now an instrumental part of that group. And one of your superpowers, if you will, is around campaign organization and structure. And it's a part of the overall process that we find a lot of sellers do wrong. So when you're looking at campaigns, what are you typically seeing? What are you looking for within a campaign structure? And how can you tell a good one from a bad one?
So when it really comes down to it, it's do you know what's advertised where? Can you find it? And can you really drill in to see what's working and what's not working? Um, a lot of times when I work with a new brand or a new account, I go into it like I just pretend like I don't know anything, and I look at the structure and I try to guess. Okay, here's this campaign named this. I wonder what's inside of it. Then I drill into it to see if it's actually true or not. Because a lot of times people are just kind of haphazardly placing things and saying, "Oh, I'll come back to that later and fix it later." And that's not really a good method or practice to use. You want to be meticulous about your structure and make sure you know what's going on at any given time. And you don't want to have to dig into it too much to find out what's working, what's not working.
Okay, so if I'm going to build something, right, the adage in building is measure twice, cut once. Right. If that's the general adage, what's the adage in building my campaign structure? Do I want to build this out on a piece of paper before I actually start programming it? Like, how do you kind of walk me through your mindset while you're trying to build out a campaign structure to figure out what the right campaign structure is? Because I would assume that each of them are slightly different.
Oh, yeah. And definitely the best parts is no two structures are the same. And I always feel like an architect to a degree. And fun fact, as a kid, I told my mom I wanted to go to Georgia Tech and become an architect, but my path has changed since then. But I actually will kind of draw out the structure and strategy as I'm creating it in an Excel spreadsheet. Nothing fancy, doesn't have pretty colors, anything like that. But I have it broken out by what the campaign title is going to be, what the ad group is going to be, what products are going to be inside those ad groups, the default bids, and the daily budgets. And I do all this upfront before I launch anything so I can see how it all fits together. And it's kind of like a map of, okay, here's all these products. They're inside this ad group, inside of this campaign. And these are grouped together. These are broken out into SKU-based ad groups. But I'm very visual and very OCD, like I said, about this. So I want to make sure it looks perfect, clean, and exactly how I want it to be before I launch anything at all inside the console on Amazon.
So maybe we'll change and create a new term called PPC architecture.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it really is because you have to, just like you said, measure twice and cut once. And it's also good just to have a representation of how everything looked when you first launched it. So a year down the road, someone can say, "Hey, do you have that original strategy that you built out?" And I can pull it out and we can see how it's developed over time and see what it was at the beginning and where it is now and what's been added or removed over time as well.
Okay, but is there a general fear? I mean, you work with a lot of clients on an annual basis. Is there a lot of fear around restructuring? And is that, if there is that fear warranted?
Yes, there is a lot of fear. A lot of people, will say, "Well, hey, these campaigns have been running since 2017." And I'm like, "That's cool. I have a nice pair of jeans from way back then, but they've gotten worn down over time. It's time to refresh and get some fresh new traffic in there."
Right.
So there is the fear of just cutting everything off and starting over. And that's not what we do. We do a gradual approach over time where we keep the legacy campaigns running as we're launching the new campaigns, but we're doing decreases on the legacy campaigns, taking out the keywords that have worked in the past, put them in the new campaign, and kind of transition that traffic over a couple weeks or a month or so. Then once we see our campaigns picking up successfully with new velocity and traffic, we can start turning off and pausing those legacy campaigns. It's never a rip it off and hope that it does okay method. It's more of a let's take this slowly and make sure the traffic doesn't fall off. You don't want to lose sales velocity on Amazon. You never want to do that.
Okay, so it's a gradual approach, but how often do you find that a campaign needs to be restructured? Have you ever met a campaign you liked?
You know, maybe once or twice. Maybe. It really just depends because sometimes I can just change the structure that's already there and I can rename some things, make sure it's more obvious, what the campaign is advertising, what's in the ad group. I can readjust like the budgets and the bids if I need to. But it comes down to really asking like if it's worth it to kind of salvage what's already there. It's kind of like, a car wreck. Is it totaled or can we fix it and insurance will cover a large bit of it? It really depends. If it's a very large account, sometimes it's easier just to get a refresh with some new campaigns because also those new campaigns will give you new fresh traffic from Amazon with new search terms and new placements because Amazon sees these new campaigns like a brand new toy and they want to play with them. And they give you lots of traffic up front because of that benefit of the doubt, like we talked about before. They're like, okay, new campaign, no history. Let's see what works. Here's all this traffic. Let's see what you can do with it.
So you're still finding concepts like benefit of the doubt and honeymoon period. And maybe we should explain those for people that don't know, but you're still finding concepts like that to still exist within the general world of PPC, that Amazon still wants to see you experiment. They want you to put some raw campaigns out there and let their system kind of build. And maybe you have lost impressions on certain products or certain keywords. And by starting a new campaign, you might be able to give it some new love, so to speak.
Yes, it happens a lot. And we do make sure we tell all of our clients and our brands and accounts this. We're like, hey, there's going to be a surge in traffic, but it's going to be traffic we can really manipulate and take advantage of. For a lot of people that are doing this by themselves, they may just be launching campaigns and hoping for the best. But you have to realize during this initial phase with this new traffic, you've got to optimize it. You've got to clean it up. You've got to tell Amazon, hey, this is not a relevant term. We don't want to show up for this. Get this out of here. We want to make this clean going forward. So while you do get lots of new traffic and new velocity, you got to be on top of it. Because if you're not, Amazon's going to give you lots of erroneous traffic that doesn't actually convert. And that leads to you getting worse placement over time because you're not staying on top of it.
What makes a bigger impact? Is it reorganization of the campaigns or a refresh of the product detail information, title, like that?
It's a combination of both. I know that's not the answer. It's always it depends. But it really does, because if you have a very strong listing that has a really powerful title, back in keywords, bullet points, even the product description, that's telling Amazon what your product is. But then from there, Amazon uses that listing to drive traffic via advertising. So they're looking at this ad and they're like, what's this product? Oh, it's an apple slicer. Got it. Let's drive traffic for apple and slice. So you have to it's kind of a chicken before the egg situation. You want to have a strong listing first before you drive a lot of traffic to it. But then also, as you're driving traffic through it, you can get a sense of what Amazon thinks your product is by looking at the search terms. And if you see all these random terms coming through, it's time to go back to your listing and say, why is Amazon giving me traffic for the Cadillac Escalade? This makes no sense at all. You have to keep both of them in mind all the time while you're optimizing.
So does a product listing need to be touched and updated and overhauled as regularly as a advertising campaign? Or how do you know which one, right? If I'm looking at both of these, how do I know which one is maybe the one to prioritize?
I still think PPC needs more ongoing optimization. Just because you're getting lots of unique traffic all the time on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, on a minute by minute basis, there's a lot you have to keep up with. But by keeping up with that, you can kind of be told by Amazon, okay, it's time to refresh your listing. Here's some terms you may not be using inside of it. Or hey, here's some other ASINs that we're putting your ASIN on the listing. Why don't you check out those listings, see what keywords they're using to refresh your listing based off of theirs? So it is an ongoing process, but I still think it's good to do a listing optimization to let it sit for a while, just kind of let it stick, look at the data you're getting from that traffic, and then see if you have to redo anything going forward.
Yeah. So if you haven't touched your listing or your ads in a really long period of time, that's where you maybe want to check your conversion rate to determine if your conversion rate's pretty low. You might want to start with a listing optimization and then come roll into an ad optimization. If your conversion rate is higher, then you could probably jump right into that ad optimization.
Right, exactly. It's kind of like you wouldn't buy a billboard in the middle of Midtown Atlanta for a restaurant that is half built. Like you want to have it well established, make sure when people get there, they're going to buy something. Then you drive the traffic to it to make sure it's actually successful traffic with a good click-through rate and a good conversion rate, especially.
So what are some common mistakes people make?
Whew, where do I start? I'll start with the structure. A lot of people still want to use catch-all structures where they put all their products in one ad group, one campaign, and then they wonder why they're showing up for irrelevant terms on Amazon. Like you have an apple slicer and then a pair of headphones in the same ad group in the same campaign. There's a slight chance you may start indexing and showing up for something that's not relevant to your product. But then also, how do you do negatives if you have two different types of products in the same ad group and campaign as well? So structure is everything. Start from the bottom, build it up. And on top of that, another mistake is people coming in and launching every ad type that is available all at once. And then they get upset that they spent so much money that didn't convert. So instead, we start with sponsored product ads to get conversion going. We move up to sponsor brand and they go to sponsor display. We build on top of each type of advertising. So that way it's justified as we're moving up. We don't want to just come in there and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars just to see what works and what doesn't work, you know?
So over the years, right, Amazon has added all these different ad types. And even within these ad types, there's sub ad types, right? There's targeting type of ads, there's ASIN targeting, there's product targeting, there's category targeting, there's display, there's retargeting, there's video. How does that start to impact my structure as I start to expand into those additional ad types?
Man, Jeff, you're making me realize, like, years ago when I first started doing this, it was so much more simple. And now it is this
It was,
craziness.
right. It was really simple.
It,
It was really simple. It was really simple ad structures. People were still getting it wrong, and it's become significantly more complex. And there's probably a good number of people out there who just over the last year in the number of ad types have been adding stuff to their campaigns, but maybe aren't considering the structure when doing that.
right. And so we look at it as a full funnel approach, where kind of like what I said before, we start off at the bottom of the funnel. Instead of the top of the funnel, I flip it and start at the bottom to build a good foundation for conversion. So when we're doing this, we launch auto and manual to start, just to get some traffic going, to see what's actually indexing, see what we're showing up for. We do some ASIN targeting campaigns once we can harvest some of those ASINs from our auto campaigns and go after those other listings that we've converted on. We might do category targeting as we're moving up the funnel. It's a little looser there. But then like mid funnel or so, we go to sponsor brand. And what we do is we graduate those terms that have worked at the bottom of the funnel up into sponsor brand campaigns and sponsor brand video campaigns. And then from there, we graduate those ASINs that are converting to sponsor display campaigns. So instead of starting at the top where it's about brand awareness, I start at the bottom where I get conversion to justify moving up the funnel. That is huge for me, especially with the new ad types as they're rolling out. Always know where those fit into the funnel so you're not kind of getting ahead of yourself or messing up your flow as you're moving from one ad type to another.
Amazon advertising has become a lot more complicated over the years with all of these additional ad types or structures by which you can advertise. Talk a little bit about how you, a brand, can be looking at what's working within your business and what's not. And then ultimately, like, where do you see this going? Like, what's next on the horizon for Amazon advertising? Is it going to just be more cost per click, or is it going to be more ad types to manage, or a combination thereof, or something we haven't even thought of?
So I will say one thing for all brands to keep in mind is you kind of have to try everything. You may have a best friend that has said, man, sponsor brand video just never worked out for me. Well, there's a lot of things that go into that. You should still try it yourself, even for just a trial period to see how it performs for you. So I will say, as new ad types are rolling out, new targeting methods, try it out, even just for a week, for a few days, see how it performs. But don't be scared to try it. And don't have a knee jerk reaction where you have one bad day. Always let the data come in, give it some time to really show inside the account. So that's what I'd say to people that are using different types of, advertising and trying things out. Try it out. As we move forward, I do see it becoming more complex, but on the flip side of that, I do see Amazon starting to realize, whoa, we've created something that can be a monster sometimes. We need to give brands and people on Amazon better tools that can make it easier to understand what's working. Because in the end, Amazon wants you to use the advertising, but if they don't have the tools and the proper, console to really recognize what's working, you may stop. So I do see it getting more and more complex with more ad types. I see it moving more to the CPM method actually, which is rolling through sponsored display right now, and kind of seeing a gap between a sponsored display and then a DSP being closed a little bit to make it more fluent between both of those ad types. But I think along that, there's going to be more education from Amazon, better tools, and really just a better understanding as to why you want to use all the ad types Amazon has to offer.
And something we didn't even get into today that is another whole topic is OTT, which is the ability to start placing your ads inside Amazon Prime, Amazon Video, other Twitch, other places that you can start to advertise your product. Over the weekend, I was watching a college football game. It was being streamed on ESPN, and there was a commercial that was totally through OTT trying to sell a concept of cricket, fantasy cricket. And you could just tell from the quality of the video and everything that it was an OTT ad. And it just made me think, it's like, wow, what amazing opportunity for product placement that I can have as a brand on Amazon. Maybe I can't put it onto college football because Amazon doesn't own ESPN, but Amazon now has Thursday Night Football. Amazon is starting to bid for these things, these other pieces, and you can start to do product placement in some of the videos that are happening in the gaming that's happening in Twitch. And so as your brand grows and as your brand moves up funnel and you're working on things that are more around brand awareness and consideration, you can actually start to place your product into places that used to be very difficult to get to with the simple click of a button now within an ad console. And I think that's where, you talked about levers and there being many levers to being successful on Amazon and needing to pull each of those levers based on your brand and your goals and what you're trying to do, which is really why we structured a managed services group. So back in 2017, when we first started the group, it was because people would call us up and go, can you do that for us? And here we are in 2021, entering 2022, and the complexity of can you do it for us has gotten greater and greater, which is why we now have full teams that are doing this, not just an account manager, but account directors that are developing strategy and managers that are doing day-to-day, and then coordinators who are doing some of the behind the scenes lever pulling that needs to occur. So as Amazon continues to grow, it's important that you blend the technology that you're using with the strategy. If you don't have the strategy behind your Amazon advertising, consider reaching out and talking to PPC Ed. I'm sure he'd love to chat with you, help you kind of take a look at your campaigns and tell you what's going on. Thanks for joining me, Ed. We need to do this much more often. It's been way too long, and we'll take care of that on our end. And I appreciate you joining and sharing some knowledge today.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it.